Hi everyone, my name is Nostalgia. I'm making this guide for Team Liquid. This guide is called the Egg to Army Macro Style. It's a macro style that might be used by a lot of people right now, but I decided to make the guide to try and help people that play Zerg. The build can also be incorporated into Protoss play, but for now I'm just keeping it to Zerg. So what this build does, or what this guide will show you, is that you can macro units into your army. For example, I make a Zerg there, and I shift 1, and include that egg into my current Zerg grouping army. So what this does is it puts a Zerg egg into the grouping of this army here. But what it does is, as soon as that egg hatches, those Zerglings will join the army and join the actions that the rest of the grouping is doing. So what this does essentially is it immediately sends units to the front of the army instead of sending them to the rally point that they would normally be sent to. For example, if I was fighting out here, fighting a Terran, and I wanted to get more units going, obviously macroing, I select my hotkey for my hatcheries, which is number 3 right here. I hit S for selecting the larva, and then I hit Zergling, 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 which makes 3 eggs of Zerglings. I shift 1, those eggs into my control group, and you can see the rally point here for those eggs. The eggs are all in my rally point here. So what happens is, one thing that might bug you is these lines across the screen. You get used to them after a while, so don't worry about that too much. But what happens is, as I'm fighting out here, I've made those units, but instead of these units sitting at my control group right here, they've run across the field and now they're joining my army immediately. I don't have to go back to that rally point, select them, add them to my group, and keep going. This can be really easily done with any kind of unit, really. For example, I have Mutalisks here, I have 4. If I go, say, build 2 Mutalisks, you note that I have an extra larva here. If you want to get rid of that, just Control, click on the eggs, and then put them into my second control group. There I have 2 Zerg cocoons in the group, and as soon as those Mutalisks hatch, they'll join my Mutalisks. One weakness to this build is, for example, if I'm flying out here, killing some units over here with these 4 Mutalisks, the new Mutalisks that are in the control group will say attack, move, command towards that group. So if there's a bunch of Marines here, these guys will get decimated. It's one weakness to the build, and it's something you have to keep an eye on when you're doing it. Sorry, to the guide, not the build. So you kind of have to get used to also turning off your macro. So if you know that there's a bunch of Marines here and you don't want them flying into the Marines, build the Mutalisks and let them go to the control group, or let them go to the rally point. Don't egg to army macro them into your army. So it's just something to consider when you're macroing. It's something that gets easier as you do it more. It's something I've done since the beginning of the beta, and I've found it more advantageous than disadvantageous. So it's something you can decide to do. But I wrote the guide regardless so that you can see that it's really easy to do and it doesn't take a lot of skill to do. It's pretty simple and it will help your macro in the end. Thank you, and my name is Nostalgia, so please